G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Amanda, thank you so much for making the time to catch up. Obviously, we work together at Grow a Small Business. And I really wanted to do a podcast with you to explore this idea of return on investment in marketing, because I know from experience it's really hard, particularly for small business owners, to get their head around investing in marketing. And one of our key products for the clients that we work with is a financial model, and building that really begins to force us to think about investment in marketing and what sort of return we're looking for and expect. So I wanted to take the opportunity to have a chat and get your expertise on this, but before I sort of blab on too much more, can I get you to just give us a little bit of a reintroduction, I should say, to your background and experience in marketing?
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob, for having me on. So background, I'm a 30-year plus marketer, so I'm definitely showing my age. Primarily in corporate, so I particularly cut my teeth with WPP, which is an international marketing and advertising media company. When I turned to Australia, my interest started to sway towards small to medium businesses, and I've had some great roles because unlike a big, huge company where you've got, unlimited resources and you work with the smartest people from around the world in all different disciplines, in a small to medium business, you're working with the founders generally. And so you're working with all that passion, that resilience, that courage, and that beautiful energy. And so for me, when I returned to Australia, that was definitely something I wanted to do. And I've had some great roles in, smaller companies. And what it meant was I could take all that, knowledge that I'd gained both from my education and professional development, but those big corporates, they're, I got all the cool tools. I could take some of those learnings and go, okay, what are the things that we could use, with limited budgets and constraints on resources and time. And that's been the fun part for me. I guess ultimately, though, it's the storytelling bit. I just love telling people a story, whether it's about the founder or owner or about their clients or the community in which they serve. That's the bit that kind of gets me up in the morning.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good segue. Like, you talk about storytelling, and before sort of getting into like numbers and ratios and things, I just wanted to touch on what is the definition of marketing in your mind, and or maybe like what are the objectives of marketing? And I thought I'd just lead off potentially showing my ignorance here, but the way I think about it is that there's a long-term strategy of building a brand and a short-term strategy of acquiring leads. And the two obviously go hand in hand. And look, again, from what I've heard, over the long term, building a strong brand is one of the best things you can do with your marketing budget, and that will inevitably lead to lead acquisition. But maybe tell me your thoughts on that and whether you think my thinking's accurate or whether I'm missing something.
I totally love the way you're thinking. And, like most professions, it's a lot of the terms sort of get kind of thrown around and get a little bit fatigued. And I was reading something today about growth marketing, or guerrilla marketing or hack marketing. I mean, there's so many new terms. And then there's also the pieces around customer experience and then advertising, paid advertising, and then communications, whether that be internal or your client communication. So all these bits sort of get bundled in, but I like where you started. I think in terms of long-term play, brand building helps keep the top of your funnel, your sales funnel full. And generally from, a funding point of view, typically we've spent, 50 to 60% of our budgets on the brand building. And then the other bit is, I guess, I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to marketing, but it's that, way down the funnel, like how do you get lead inquiries into your business so that ultimately you can convert. So, and that's about quality over quantity sometimes. But I think I'm about to coin a new term. I haven't Googled it, so I'm not sure if anyone's using it. It only
Do
came
we
to
want to
me.
trademark it before you say it? Or?
Yeah, maybe we should trademark it. But and that piece about storytelling, and if I put it all together, to me, it's commercial storytelling. So it's, and in my mind, commercial storytelling is not just about creative or top of funnel activity. It's how you get people into your funnel, the right people at the right time, the right channel, and then how do you nurture them down, to conversion. Really, really tricky for even the best marketing teams in the world. Attribution's got harder and harder and harder. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm leaning to, in terms of how I want to think about myself and how, I work with clients, is that it's that commercial piece that's potentially missing. And that helps us understand, like what numbers we need to track and what should we be spending and, all those kinds of cool conversations.
Yeah, okay. So how how can you then begin to measure what return you're getting on marketing, particularly when you're talking about some of that longer term brand development work? And it sort of reminds me of a phrase I once heard, which was something along the lines of, we know half our marketing budget is wasted, we just don't know which half.
I think it was David Ogilvy.
Right.
Yeah, I think he said that. It's so true. And we've fortunately become a long way since then. Yeah, which half have I wasted and which half
Yeah.
actually brought me in sales? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, yeah, again, just curious to know, particularly like from a small business owner's perspective, how do they get a sense if they're spending their budget wisely or not, and over what sort of time frame should you be thinking about return on investment for marketing?
Marketing is really about test and monitor, test and monitor, test and monitor. And I think when folks ask me like how much I should be spending, I think the better question is we need to ask is what have I tested? Because where should I be spending my money on what channels, what promotional activities, have I done some proper research or some segmentation of like who I'm trying to reach? There's so much sort of more that we can do and talk about before we even answer that question. Now, for a business owner in the SMB space, often we don't have the luxury of that kind of time. So we look at, benchmarking of sort of standardize of what the industry is doing. So, for example, in the B2B space, typically we spend somewhere between 3 and 5% of our forecasted turnover, so top line revenue. So that should be a chunk of money that we should look at to then go, well, how are we going to use that? And let's say 50% on branding activity, top of funnel activity, and 50% on lead generation. In the B2C space, like say an e-commerce business, it's typically a little bit higher. It's sort of typically around 5 to 10% and even a little bit more for startups. So I know you talk about this all the time, as does the team at Grow a Small Business, is you got to know your numbers. So I think that's the first place to start. Then we start adding some other cool metrics, like things like customer acquisition costs, so CAC. So, for example, a very simple example is, I see lots of small businesses spending money on Meta, the old Facebook. So, if we're spending, say, $2,000 over a month, and out of those ads, we get 4 conversions to our website or on the phone, simply put, the CAC is $500 per customer. So that's the first metric. The other one is lifetime value. So to your point, like what is the typical, relationship that you have with your customers or clients? Is it transactional? Is it repeat business? Is it a subscription model? But in that example, let's say you'd retain a client, they're typically 24, 25 months, and there's 4 transactions over that time, then the lifetime value of that customer is 2,500. So knowing your numbers is super important, and at least just having a shot of it. And sometimes we use average sale value as well, at least to get a benchmark. Because the funny thing with marketing is sometimes you might be spending too much on the wrong channel and not getting the results, but sometimes you may not be spending enough. And so, that's when we get down to things like ratio, which is lifetime value essentially divided by your customer acquisition cost. So, anything over 5 to 1. So, you earn $5 for every dollar you spend might mean you're leaving money on the table or sales on the table. And so you actually should be spending more,
Good point.
So this is where, knowing your numbers, it doesn't have to be every single metric, but choose the ones that, are key to your business or what you're trying to achieve, or at least ask the questions. And get a sense of what those numbers look like, because that'll give you your own benchmark for your business. And you can research against other industries. You can ask around at networking events. You can ask people sort of what percentage of their forecast they're spending on marketing. You don't have to swap numbers if people are not comfortable. You can certainly swap percentages, and then you can start to get in your own mind like, yes, I feel a bit more confident about putting some money aside for this, or no, I've asked the questions and I need to ask more questions. But knowing those numbers, knowing some of what those key metrics are, will give you a bit more confidence in trying some different channels.
Are you struggling to find time to work on your business? Or is your health and relationships out of balance? Lost confidence, or are your weeks filled with fear? Our free 10-day Transform Your Performance online course shows you how to unlock at least 5 hours a week. We start with the secret to guaranteed success, and with over 100 lessons and free tools, you will become more focused, productive, and feel more in control of your business, health, and relationships. growsmallbusiness.com.
And in your experience, when you're looking at something like customer acquisition cost, and you sort of gave the example there, you've spent 2,000 and you've got 4 customers. So it's roughly $500 to get a new customer. If you're trying a new marketing channel, at what point do you think you're confident enough to do those sums? Because I'm guessing, if you spend $500 and you get 1 customer, is that enough to go, well, every customer is going to cost me $100? Or do you want to see it repeated sort of 4 or 5, 6 times and then go, yeah, look, we think we're pretty confident now that we've got a feel for this?
Yeah, you're looking for trends and incremental improvements. So, and look, any kind of promotion or campaign can be over 24 hours. And I'll give an example of one in just a minute. Over 7 days, over 14 days, over 3 months. It does depend a little bit on your the average life cycle of your current customer base, and that's probably a good starting point to go. Average, customer takes 3 months to convert, or 48 hours, or whatever the case may be. That's probably a good starting point. And then going back to where I started, just test and monitor, you can do that incrementally. So rather than go, oh, I've got that one sale, yeah, this works, I'm throwing a couple of $1,000s on it. No, just, go up 20% or 10% and try it again. And, maybe try something a little bit different, like keep all your copy the same but change the image, or vice versa, or, try, another channel. So you had that great result on, say, Meta. why don't you try it on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or YouTube?
Yeah.
And see if that makes any difference. So you can start to look at kind of all the different variables. But this is the bit about the test and monitor bit. It's really, and most marketing teams do it, just do it on a bigger scale. But
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
business owner, you can totally do these kind of tests.
Yeah. That makes heaps of sense. And again, I might need you to just sharpen my thinking on that, but I sort of look at the customer acquisition cost and the lifetime value. Um, that's super helpful in that short-term lead acquisition stuff. Is there anything different we're looking at when we're investing in building a brand?
In terms of metrics,
Yeah, in terms of metrics.
yeah, if someone stops you on the street and asks you about your business, that's a really good
Yeah,
you're
definitely on
doing
the right
something
track.
right. Um, I mean, definitely things like traffic to website. So, direct versus a referral versus organic traffic. Like, is it going up or down? Um, Absolutely some engagement metrics like followers. You know, take it with a grain of salt. It's just sort of one indicator. Um,
Mm,
NPS or surveys, so actually asking your customers, when did you hear about us? Asking your new customers, how did you hear about it? I mean, all those kind of things are pretty easy things for a small to medium business to set up and start tracking. And, track that for 30, 60, 90 days. You've got a nice little bucket of data. You can go, I think what we're doing in terms of our brand effort, we're seeing an incline, on these channels.
mm,
Let's continue to do more of that.
yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. And again, I keep hearing from many of my marketing friends and influencers that investment in brand over a 5-year horizon will always outstrip investment in short-term customer acquisition. But I guess as a small business with limited budget, it's probably really hard to be brave enough to invest in the long term like that. But I guess what you're saying is, look, probably a bit over half your budget should go into the long-term brand stuff, and and the rest into that short-term lead acquisition. And if you're measuring the right stuff and you're confident that your numbers are pointing you in the right direction, then hopefully that helps you be brave enough to really spend aggressively on your marketing with a view for where you're going to go in 5 years.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of confidence. And, I guess just off the top of my head, one of the practical ways to see that in action is, and DMA, which is the Direct Marketing Association, brought out a great research piece last year, which gave the average return on investment across different channels. And email marketing stripped everything. It was sort of like, for every dollar spent, it was a $44 return on investment.
Wow.
Yeah, it was huge. So, and you hear lots of people on social media channels saying email's dead, email's dead. If you looked at email as both a brand building channel and also a lead generation channel, you could probably do both. So,
That's
and
an interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
how it would look practically. So, an email newsletter that goes out, say, to your client base could be just around education or entertainment or, something inspiring or share something new that you've learned. And you could potentially call that a brand building exercise. You're giving something of value because they've exchanged and trusted you with their email address. On the lead gen side, your email goes out with an offer of some sort, and so now you've got one email database that ideally you would segment, new customers versus VIP customers, say, for example, versus, never brought, but on our email list. But even with that, which is what a lot of most businesses have, some sort of email list, you could, brand building activity versus lead gen or demand gen activity just from the one list. It's just how you think about it, how you think about your end customer, and then how you utilize that channel.
Yeah, great point. And I know you were going to talk a little bit about a case study of some work you've done recently, I think for Grow a Small Business, just around, I guess, understanding return on investment. Can you just briefly share that story with us?
Yeah, no, totally. Thanks for reminding me. So this is really the test and monitor. So, part of our strategy going into the new year is give away more education, free resources for small to medium businesses. And so we just tested a carousel on LinkedIn. It was around a specific subject around funding, like what are some of the alternatives for funding rather than just going to a bank. And in the first 24 hours, the click-through rate was at around 96%. And to make that relevant, our click-through rate on most of our content is around 1.2 to 1.5%. And we also got a few people deeper in the channel. So we had a few people sign up for the email newsletter and do some other actions that we really wanted to do. So there's quite a lot of variables just involved in that very, very simple test, and that was organic, so it's not paid. There's things like the day of the week, time of day, the subject, the length, the call to action, the link, all the stuff. But what that I've now got, I guess, a control or a hero post where I've got really fantastic brand engagement. And so now I've done another one on another subject, marketing actually, and I'm going to test that and see what comes out of that. But that gives me is the confidence to go, once I understand some of those variables, is I could probably put a little bit of money behind this. Not a whole lot, but I want more people to see this because our organic traffic have loved it. Something has resonated, and we know our target audience better than anyone. So that gives me the confidence to go, okay, now I can put some paid media behind that ad.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's what a lot of what it comes down to is investing with confidence. And that's where I think our financial modeling that we do with our clients is just so helpful, because when we start to get a few of these metrics and understand how it works in their specific business, and we can show what sort of return they should expect on their marketing, all of a sudden it begins to open up their minds to, wow, actually, as you touched on earlier, maybe I'm not spending enough on marketing, because if I am getting a $2,000 customer when I spend 500, then why wouldn't I spend more until I start to see those metrics change? It's a crazy good investment, much better than you're going to get by keeping your money in the bank. And I guess it helps people who are looking to perhaps borrow a little bit more money to try and supercharge their business a little bit, that, yeah, we're on the right track here. And if we're spending our marketing in the right place and we're confident we're going to get more customers, then this is really how we're going to see at least the top line of our business begin to grow. So
Absolutely. And you hit on a great point. It's marketing has to support the commercials, not the other way around. And because it is the cost of goods, it's things like margins, it's obviously wages, all those other costs. Marketing is an investment, but it becomes a line item that supports the commerciality of the business.
Yeah. Awesome. Amanda, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciated that chat. That helped me unscramble a few things in my head and just understand marketing a little bit better. So always appreciate your wisdom and insights. And
you're very welcome.
Didn't disappoint again. Thank you so much.
See ya. Bye.
Want to help other small business owners improve their business? There's one quick thing you can do, which is jump over to iTunes and leave a review. Or if you don't have an account, follow us on Spotify.